I want to thank everybody for joining us on the weekly business update. Once again, this week, Jeff is on assignment, so it will be the rest of the eTruckBiz team here. Carrie, Bob, Becca, and probably Seneca will join us today as we move through this process. As always, if there are any questions, please put them in the chat or the Q&A, and we will get to those. Once again, need to remind everybody that eTruckBiz is not endorsed by FedEx, as always, and Becca does have a couple things for us today.
Thank you. So before we get started, I just wanted to remind everyone that eTruckBiz offers business services, consulting, and software. This is geared towards FedEx service providers to help them become successful independent business owners. That's the whole purpose of eTruckBiz. So you have a contract and now you want to build the business you want. eTruckBiz exists to help FedEx contractors build a business that is more profitable, easier to run, and more valuable over time, not just one that survives the week. So by using our system and programs, you're going to have more control, you're going to have better margins, and then life first goals, which is, we want you to build a business that supports your life, not one that consumes it. So that's the whole purpose of our programs and the system that we have created. We're built around contractor support. So we are not out here just to sell software or advice. Every service, tool, and conversation is designed around one thing, and that is the contractor success. So we offer strategic support, operational support, and human support. You're going to get all of those with eTruckBiz because contractors need more than a vendor. They need a partner. Support that shows up before the sale. So when Jeff and Seneca were at a Network 2.0 presentation, there was a contractor, Alex, who I wanted to share this with you guys. He said, you went beyond the conversation. You helped us even before we were a customer. That told us everything about who eTruckBiz really is. And I love to hear that because that's exactly what we stand for. What we want for you is we genuinely care about the success of your business. So we want service providers doing well. So we do offer the contractor support ladder. So what we kind of do, every contractor is going to have a different issue or I guess a different fire that may be going on. So we want to first diagnose the chaos. So we identify the root cause behind daily fires, like staffing issues, scheduling pressure, compliance demands, operational efficiency, and so forth. What's going on? What is the biggest concern for you? And then we install the playbook. We apply proven systems and processes that help contractors get organized, understand their business, and create a workable plan. So then from there, we're going to execute with support. So through our business growth and support system, we help contractors implement the plan and stay on track. And then we have the build enterprise value. So the result is a stronger, more scalable, valuable business that can create future exit options. So if you are interested in learning more about these programs and the system that I just was referring to, you can scan this QR code and get on my calendar. Feel free to email me, becca@eTruckBiz.com. Even if you just have some simple questions about it, I am more than happy to assist with that and get you scheduled.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Becca. So if you are in Washington, Beltsville, Baltimore area today, please stop by as eTruckBiz will be hosting a Network 2.0 session that starts at 3:30 today, 521 Prosperity Drive in Silver Springs, Maryland. So if you're in the area, please stop by. Next week, 520 will be in New York, Westbury, Long Island, and then the short time after that, 6/3 in San Antonio. Well, the volume for week 19 on the pickup side, the stops are flat, down just less than 0.5%. Pickup packages worse, down almost 3%. We're seeing that drop off. That means your volume's going to drop down this week on the delivery side. So let's plan accordingly. Last week, though, the delivery volume was up 2.5% on the delivery stops and just shy of 2% with the delivery packages. We slightly increased, less than 1%, our dispatches. We're back over the 100 stops per dispatch, pushed all the way up to 101 stops per dispatch, a 1.4% gain. Outstanding job by our customers there, and your margins will reflect that. Okay, speaking of your margin and what affects your margins the most, Of course, it's going to be the pay to your employees, as this is your biggest expense item. So today we're going to talk about managing an hourly workforce in the Network 2.0, from daily operation to shift-based management. What really changes? Why this topic? Why now? Well, last week we established that hourly pay is the right structure for Network 2.0 margins. Today's focus, the operational model, must change to match the pay structure. Switching pay without changing your management will not capture the benefit. So Network 2.0 is a reality. Express time definite plus ground volume on the same routes. I don't think anybody's going to argue with that. That's the best way to do it. And that's the way the margins and the budgets are set up. New stakes, every hour on the clock, if we're paying hourly, every hour on the clock is now a real-time cost event. There's a risk, though. Contractors who only change pay, not management, will not protect the margins. The old model versus the new reality. The old model, we're going to pay by the day, manage reactively. A route equals a stop list. Driver cost is fixed regardless of the hours worked, but doesn't matter how much work, so your driver cost is fixed. Incentive misalignment is built in. The new model, pay by the hour, manage proactively. A route equals a shift with defined windows. Extra hours beyond planned is a direct margin erosion. Management structure must match the pay structure. So if somebody's planned to work 8 hours, what happens if they work 9? We'll get into that. The pay structure only works if the management structure matches it. So are you prepared to manage by the hour? Route versus shift, the foundational shift. You have defined start times. You have expected end times. You have completion based on stops. You have planned dispatch windows. So the route equals a collection of stops completed when done. The shift, time block when defined start and ends. Another shift metric, dispatch windows and benchmarks, meaning I start at 8 o'clock, I end at 5 o'clock. Where should I be at 12 o'clock? Route flexibility. Finish on completion focus. Shift-based thinking requires defined start times, planned dispatch times, expected end times with interim benchmarks. Planned dispatch times must be used for engineering purposes. FedEx preload delays threaten planned dispatch. When does the preload end? So, preload timing, your first daily control point. And you say, it's not in my control. Okay, you might be right there, but what can we control out of that? Your planned dispatch time is your operational anchor. When preload end time doesn't support it, you need a contingency plan and you need to document. One, document every occurrence, date, planned dispatch time, actual dispatch time and volume every single day. Have a log for this. Why? Because these events are compensatable. Preload delays belong in a settlement negotiation as documented as a unique characteristic. Stop leaving money behind. Most contractors ignore this data entirely and forfeit leverage at settlement time. Okay. Why is that important and where does that come into place? I'll go back to this a little bit. The Youngstown station went Network 2.0. They were one of the first ones, I think October of 24. Well, their dispatch time was based off of a 9:15 dispatch. They were actually dispatching at 9:45. So what did they do? They went back to last mile. The station was involved. They said, listen, we're not getting these drivers out till 9:45. So they had to compensate them for that extra half hour. That meant extra dispatches. And Carrie, what happens if you get budgeted for extra dispatches in your settlement when it comes time for the negotiation?
If you get budgeted for extra dispatches at the time of negotiation, is that the question?
Yeah.
Right. It means more money. Okay. People are not keeping track of dispatches that they're doing versus the dispatches that FedEx is budgeting you for. That's a very important characteristic that needs to be looked at and proven as far as your negotiation goals. It can mean money.
So also the BC role has to change. This is part of that management shift. It's got to change from troubleshooter to dispatcher. The old role, dispatch in the AM, handle problems as they arise. Definitely needed, definitely happens, but that's a reactive role. The new role, active real-time monitoring through the entire day. Check driver progress versus planned timeline at defined intervals. Communicate pace issues in real time, not at the end of the day. What happens if a driver's got 125 stops and you don't check on that driver until 2 o'clock in the afternoon and they've only got 25 stops? Done. There's going to be failures on that route, and you're definitely going to miss that scheduled window of when that route or that shift was supposed to be done. One proactive intervention equals 30 to 45 minutes saved per driver dispatch per day. Basically, you can, when you notice somebody's behind at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, you can make changes then. If we recover 4 hours each day, I've got 8 drivers times 30 minutes saved via a proactive dispatch. So that turns into $80 per day at $20 per hour average driver cost. That is going to be your recovered labor value. What's that annualized to? $20K a year. $80 per day times 5 days times 50 weeks, margin protected annually. A BC who manages reactively in an hourly model is costing you $20,000 per year. The math justifies retraining, restructuring, or replacing. So once again, if the BC is not willing to change and manage by the hour and manage proactively, they're going to cost you $20,000 an hour. I mean, $20,000 a year. So dispatch yield. This is something you need to look at every day. Your daily financial scorecard. Dispatch yield equals dispatch generated revenue minus dispatch cost. Calculate it before the day, planned. If I'm planning 125 stops on a route, I got 125 and it's $4, I've got $500 worth of revenue on that route. But what are my costs? Well, how do I know my costs? Because I don't know how long it takes. Yes, I've engineered how long it takes to do that route, and I'm going to plan 8 hours on road for that. That's how we're going to know before and after. The gap tells you exactly where hours are leaking. 120 stop route example. Revenue would be $480 with 120 stops, $4 per stop. Planned 8 hours, my cost is $220 minus from that $480. I've now got a $260 yield. Well, what happens if my driver takes 10 and a half hours to do that? Okay, now my cost goes to $270. I now have a $210 yield. The driver running long 3 times per week would equal $7,200 a year in margin loss on one route. So this is why you have to manage every driver, every day, each hour. Okay, Bob, anything you want to add to this?
Yeah, Ken. Hey, when I was working for Yellow up there in your neck of the woods, we had morning dispatchers and then we had evening dispatchers. In the evenings, they'd come in at noon and they were basically there till 8 o'clock, but they were working the pickups, watching the pickups, making sure they were done timely, watching the end of their day, of the driver's day, and make sure that everything was getting off and moving people where needed. Prior to 2.0, it was, the driver managing themselves, basically working out there on their own and getting everything done. And that was paying by the day. Whenever they get done, they're done, and then they go home. Now you've got to change that. You've got to start, pay by the hour. That way, if they work 8 hours, they're getting paid for 8 hours or 9 hours. It just makes it easier in the long run, but it does have to be managed. If you manage it, you've got a better chance for success.
So in that LTL environment, did you pay hourly or by the day?
Oh, it was hourly.
And so you had call-in pickups in the LTL environment?
Oh, yes, very much so. And it was pretty busy up there in Akron, Ohio.
Okay. But so you had a dispatcher that basically was monitoring what all the drivers were doing, correct?
Correct. Watching them all, making sure that they're getting their stuff off on time, making sure they're communicating with them. It only takes one thing to get out of whack, and then the whole operation's out of whack.
Yeah. So if you did not have a dispatcher overlooking each driver, would you have chaos?
over a group of drivers, not all drivers, but yes, you would
Yeah.
definitely have chaos.
Okay, appreciate that. Afternoon pickups, the new priority. Good segue there. In ground only, afternoon pickups were minimal and manageable. In Network 2.0, same day on call pickups are an express service obligation, not an afterthought. The conflict driver is mid route when the pickup call comes in, no plan equals a service failure. Well, solution A, we have dedicated afternoon part time driver on a 1 to 6 p.m. shift, kind of what Bob had in the LTL world there. Solution B, the BC pre-positioned to actively coordinate pickup responses in real time. These are on-call pickups. They are very repetitive, though. You'll notice a trend. You'll see where they are when these people want picked up. So how do I engineer the driver who's closest to that area to be there when that customer is going to need it? That's all part of the engineering. It's all part of the planning. Okay. Part-time drivers as a strategic tool. Use case 1, afternoon pickup specialist, 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. covers express obligations. Use case 2, split shift extension, extends a route without a full day overtime cost. So rather than that 8-hour day that was going to cost me $200, now it's going to cost me $240. Use case 3, surge coverage. Basically, we schedule extra drivers as the volume dictates it. High volume days fills capacity gaps without a permanent head count. So once again, if we have variable stop counts, we should have variable number of drivers on day of the week. The strategic logic, part-time hourly drivers fill logistical gaps without full-time dispatch costs, but only when engineered correctly. A part-time driver without a defined purpose and clear engineering is just added cost. Define the role before you hire for it. So if I have a goal of 120 stops per dispatch and I've got 1,200 stops, I'm going to use 12 drivers. What happens if I have to add a part-time driver to do pickups? Now I'm at 11 dispatches. I've got a problem. So if I have to have that 11th dispatch, even though it's a part-timer, I need to put more stops on the rest of my drivers. Otherwise, it's going to erode your margins. Equipment, no margin for breakdowns. With multi-day transit windows, they can absorb the breakdowns. Service impact was manageable. Still had failures, but it was manageable. A lot of times the packages that come from the West Coast that go into the Midwest or the East Coast might get there a day early. So if they don't get delivered on that day, it might not even be a service failure. But in express world, there's zero tolerance. Time definite is a contractual obligation. Breakdowns mean service failures. A breakdown at 9:45 a.m. with express freight aboard means service failure, emergency recovery cost, and lost driver productivity all at once. Preventive maintenance is now a margin strategy, not just a budget line item. Know your vehicle gross vehicle weight by unit. It directly affects your overtime compliance exposure. We'll get into that a little bit later here. 5 things most contractors miss in the transition to hourly pay. Overtime compliance. FLSA rules apply, Federal Labor Standard Act. MCA, Motor Carrier Act, requires a gross vehicle weight over 10,001 pounds. So knowing the weights of your truck will affect your cost and how you pay. Time tracking infrastructure. Manual timesheets are a compliance liability. Implement a real system like the ETB driver app with provisional punches. For those of you who don't know, if your drivers use the eTruckBiz P&D driver app and they forget to punch in, never happens, I know, it will provide a provisional punch based off of the time that they do their first delivery stop. So you are now compliant with your time tracking infrastructure for an annual compliance audit. 3, daily performance feedback. Drivers won't self-correct without consistent structured feedback cadence. Got to tell them how they're doing every day on their stops per hour. They need to know. If they worked 9 hours and they really should have been done at 8, you've got to talk to them every day. I guarantee you in the UPS world, a driver that runs an hour over allowed, they are talked to every day. So it's got to be daily structured feedback. 4, settlement documentation, log preload times, on-call pickups, spike volumes. This is your negotiating data. Your stops per hour drop when you start doing pickups. So you got to engineer that into it. And if I've got averaging 15 pickup stops per driver, this will lower your stops per hour goal, and it may equate to more dispatches being allocated for you. Once again, back to what Carrie said, more dispatches allocated mean that there will be a settlement increase. 5, driver retention. Explain the change before paychecks change. This will help reduce turnover as turnover, especially in Network 2.0, gets more expensive. Overtime compliance, know your exposure. The federal framework is Federal Labor Standard Act, overtime at 1.5 times the regular rate for hours over 40 for non-exempt employees, at time and a half. If an employee is in a vehicle under 10,000 pounds and they do that 5 days a week and they work 45 hours, guess what? You owe 5 hours of overtime. Seneca, if a driver normally drives a truck 4 days a week that's over 10,000 pounds, they're running that P1000, and for whatever reason, they get into a sprinter that's under 10,000 pounds just one day, are they owed overtime for that week?
Yes, if they worked overtime that week, they absolutely are. You are obligated to pay overtime. Even if they just worked a half a day in that vehicle that's 10,000 pounds or less. So I also wanted to clarify, people do talk a lot about overtime or they're concerned for overtime when they transition to hourly. I think there's a misnomer that when you pay daily, you don't have to pay overtime. So even if you're paying somebody a daily rate and they work more than 40 hours in a week and they're in a vehicle at any point that's 10,000 pounds or less, you still have to do a calculation to end up paying them an overtime component. There's some tricky calculations that we can certainly help you with if we handle your payroll. We're very familiar with this.
Excellent. Thank you, Seneca. And please take advantage of those services because and it varies by state. California, if you schedule your employees 8 hours and they work over 8 hours in a day, they are due overtime. There's a little wiggle room. If you schedule 4 10s, they can work up to 10 without overtime. But the minute they work that 5th day, they're in overtime. The minute they go over 10 hours, if they're scheduled 4 10s, they get overtime. So it's important the laws where you are. And people say, well, why overtime? What's this Motor Carrier Exemptive Act? It removes the overtime obligation, but only for vehicles with a gross vehicle weight over 10,001 pounds. That a vehicle 10,001 pounds is governed by the Department of Transportation. The Department of Transportation has this Motor Carrier Act exemption. So please understand that. The contractor's hourly management framework. 1, reclassify dispatches as shifts. Define the start time, the dispatch time, and the planned end time for every route. How do you know that? You have to know the stops per hour goal for every route. And then you have to have a range of stops that you want on that truck every day. So I'm planning that truck to be between 7.5 and 8 hours every day, as close to 8 hours. Or sometimes you plan 8.5 on the road. If you're working 4 10s, you're going to plan 8.5 on the road in a 10-hour shift.
And two, that's why it's important to follow your trends. Your trends stay pretty true, except for around holidays and everything else, which we all know that, and weather circumstances. But if you follow your trends and not the DRO, I think it is getting better, I can tell. But take a look at your trends and follow that. Yep. It will help you, and it'll keep the FRO from being a crutch and saying, well, I can't run less because of this, because it is off. But use your trends.
Yeah, and trends for stops per hour by day, because they will vary. Monday can be very bulky. I might only run 14 stops per hour on Monday, but I have to plan for it. I want my week to average something. What do? I run up that scoreboard on Saturday where I can run 18 stops per hour. So know your stops per hour by work area and by day. I said, build preload contingency protocols, document every deviation, the dates, the times, the volume. 3, retrain your BC as a dispatcher. Define monitoring intervals and communications expectations daily. What do I want them doing at 10 o'clock? They're going to be calling people about the 10:30s. They're going to look at the stops per hour. What are they doing at 11:30? I want them looking at my noon deliveries. Who doesn't have any? Who are they calling? How many, where are the drivers compared to that benchmark? Have those spelled out. So your BC is now a dispatcher. They have set tasks that they have to do at a set time.
Ken?
Go ahead.
Hey, I believe, don't we have something, Dispatch IQ?
We do.
Where it's
Yep.
got a checklist?
Yep, there is a checklist built in to the Dispatch IQ in eTruckBiz. So encourage you to utilize that if you are a subscriber. Okay.
And don't the same day on calls come into that same screen, so you can, on that screen you can see what's going on. You can see the on calls coming in as they come in.
Yep.
So we got
Absolutely.
the tools that are there. It's a matter of, again, retraining your BC, not to be a driver, not to be a mechanic, a maintenance person, but to be a manager.
Absolutely. Coordinate those afternoon pickups, kind of as Bob was saying, in the daily plan. You build in for it. Don't improvise a pickup response, engineer it in advance. 5, implement time tracking technology. Do this before you move to hourly pay, not after. Yeah, it's been a role and CSPs have gotten better at it, but does it work for you? Make sure that your drivers understand the importance of clocking in and out. If they don't clock in and out, does your timekeeping system have provisional punches like eTruckBiz will provide? And 6, know your overtime exposure and log everything by vehicle. Certain vehicles are going to have overtime exposure because they're under 10,001 pounds. By state, am I in California? Am I in Colorado? And document all variances from the plan for settlement leverage. So once again, if we're planned to dispatch at 9:15 and for the last 5 days we've gotten out at 9:45, I better have that documented, and I'm going to bring that up at the time of my discussion with the goal of getting allocated more dispatches for my next contract. How does drivers loading, sorting their trucks time-wise into the total hours calculation? It's a very good question. Technically, they are on duty the minute they come in and they are ready for work, and if they touch a package, they are on duty. So you don't want them there at 6 o'clock because they're not going to get out of the building at 9 o'clock. You basically are building in an hour and a half of time. If dispatch is at 9:15, I don't want that driver there before 8:15. They get an hour. They have to be ready to leave at 9 o'clock, and then they get a half an hour in the evening, which that's for a post-trip inspection and to do the paperwork. So if I want 8.5 hours on road, I'm going to schedule them 9 hours. If I want 8 hours on the road, I'm probably going to schedule them 9.5.
Hey, also too, if drivers are, package centers are putting them on the pallets or whatever the package is, and the drivers got to load them themselves. A lot of times we see one driver working one van. No one's ever helping each other. Get that teamwork culture moving by having, buddy system and, help each other out. You throw them into the back and the driver can load them, and then they jump over and help him out. Teamwork is not where it needs to be right now.
Yep, absolutely. And they need to be in the network 2.0. The minute that last package comes down the belt, they need to be shutting the door and pulling out. If you do have a driver sort, and in case you don't know this, if you don't have a preload, you have a driver sort, your planned on-road hours are only 6.5 hours. And the number of dispatches that you are budgeted should be based off of that 6.5 hours. So what profitable contractors do differently, they engineer the shift first. Before the route defined windows, benchmarks, planned end time. Know it for every route. Their BCs calls by 1 p.m. every day. Proactive midday check-ins are non-negotiable. They know their yield before the week closes. Plan versus actual yield is tracked for every route every day. They walk into settlement or the negotiation with data. A preload delay log is a standing agenda item, not an afterthought. Make that a basic. Once again, On 200 out of 250 days, we got out at 9:45 versus 9:15. Guess what? You need to be budgeted more dispatches. That needs to go in as a unique characteristic. And even after you submit it as a unique characteristic, you ask the negotiator when they make their call to you, did you get my unique characteristics about dispatch time? So those are the things that what profitable contractors do differently. Okay, we got a chat item here. Say here we've got, okay, so there's the New York time on 5/20. Our terminal staffing is not where it needs to be, usually dispatching around 10 a.m. We're 1 hour away from the routes. I think there's an extreme focus on their dispatch time. So just from what I witnessed in the Youngstown station, just simply because it's closest to me. It's also very close to the ground headquarters in Pittsburgh, and they were the first to go. So they got a lot of attention. They were looking for every way possible to get those drivers out of the building by 9:15. And believe me, if they dispatch consistently at 9:45 and they have 10:30 failures, the station manager is not going to be the station manager for very long. So they are held accountable. If you are asking the negotiator about anything, it's already too late. Yes, you want to put it into your unique characteristics, but what you're looking there for is to confirm that they reviewed it. And if they didn't, you can get them to send it back to last mile, and you can also then involve your station, SPS, and the district office. So it's still worth doing. Okay. Is your operation ready for hourly management? Please answer these questions to yourself honestly. And if you answer no to more than 2 of these, there's work to do before you switch to this new payroll method. Do I have shift clarity? Do your drivers know their shift end time when they leave in the morning? Do they know when they're supposed to be done? I track several CSAs every day, and we've got drivers out till 8, 9, 10 o'clock. Did they know when they were supposed to be back? You want them to have that sense of urgency, but they should know what is expected at return time. Your BC protocol. Does your BC have a defined protocol for midday check-ins? Yield tracking. Do you track plan versus actual dispatch yield for every route every day? eTruckBiz has a tool for that, by the way. Preload log. Do you have a log of late preload with times and dates and volume? And do I have the gross vehicle weight for every vehicle in my fleet? Bottom line, hourly pay is the right structure for Network 2.0, but pay structure alone does not protect your margin. What do? We have to go to shift-based thinking. Managing by the hour requires engineering shift, not routes. Proactive BC oversight, real-time dispatch management is where margin is won or lost daily. Operational infrastructure, overtime compliance, time tracking, and settlement documentation, they're not optional. Okay, as I said earlier, eTruckBiz helps CSPs build the financial and operational systems to compete and win in Network 2.0. If you have any questions, please visit our website. And then the eTruckBiz Weekly Business Update. We're glad that you came today. Are there any other questions out there? Okay, we covered a lot of stuff, and we know this hourly switchover is controversial. Is it more difficult? Yes. If you take the steps that we outlined in here, you can do it successfully. Okay, no questions. We will be back here next Tuesday again to talk about more Network 2.0 processes. And if we don't talk to you before then, please have a safe and profitable week. Thank you very much.